Hey guys, Andrew Cooperrider, candidate for Senate District 12, coming at you here. Just wanted to, I've got some pre-filed bills for the 2022 session. I just kind of wanted to go through and talk to you guys about one, so you guys are aware of kind of what's all going on in the world there and what we can expect out of the regular session, 2022 regular session, and also too to give you a better idea of where I fall on some of these issues. Once again, this is something that you're not going to see from a lot of other candidates out there. Typically, candidates and people running for office do everything they can to stay away from saying how they fall on issues, because politically that is the most expedient thing they believe to do. And while that may be true, I believe in being open, transparent about where I fall. And I believe about standing up for what I believe in. And if I believe something, I think you guys should know it. And if you want to vote for me, if you want to support me, if you want to donate to me, you can do that at Andrew 4KY, the number 4, ky.com/donate. That's Andrew, the number 4, ky.com/donate. And if you want to support me, you can there. If you don't want to support me, you don't want to vote for me because you don't like where I stand on things, well, at least I didn't lie to you in order to get into office, which I think is so very clear. So let's break down some of these bills. Now, you can find the full text of any of these bills on LRC's website. That stands for the Legislative Research Commission. If you just Google LRC space KY, that'll come up. You go to bills, you go to pre-filed bills for 2022 session, and you'll be able to see them there. Of course, as always, too, please give this a share it around with people. Say, hey, check out this guy, check out what he has to say. And if you like him, show some support his way, tell people about him, maybe even vote for him if you're in the district. So we'll kind of break this down here. We've got BR 60 pre-filed here. This is a bill that is essentially a politics kind of neutral zone bill for schools, for public schools. So basically, it requires that public schools provide a neutral zone. It is not so far as to say pushing a quote unquote conservative narrative or anything like that. It does have guarantees in there that political organizations, Christian or otherwise, religious organizations or political organizations, regardless of what side of the aisle they're on, get equal amount of treatment to use the schools for extracurricular activities or to make announcements on the school's PA systems if they allow other groups to make announcements on the school's PA system. So basically it says if your basic school groups can get on and say they have a meeting after school, any religious or political organizations can do so as well. So basically it says, hey, create that neutral zone, but it also protects students against retaliation for political or religious speak in the classroom. So this can go both ways, right? This equally protects on people on the quote unquote left or people on the right. And it kind of says, hey, this can be a neutral zone. Hey, you can speak out against your teachers if they're saying something you disagree with politically, and they can't face retaliation for that. And so, because we know it's going to be very difficult to remove politics and the discussion of which out of the classroom, especially now when literally it affects every single day. I mean, when politics and law is dictating where you can work, who you can hire, whether or not you get that job, whether or not you're going to have police that respond to a call or what have you, when they have that ability, it has to permeate every single part of it as far as that goes. So that's just kind of how it works. So BR 60, Paul kind of makes a neutral zone out of the schools. I like that. That's a pretty good bill. It's got a mess of sponsors on it. Fisher, Beckler, Hart, King, Maddox, Rayborn, Reed, White, Prunty. So you've got a mess of them. And this is key too. So as we go through these bills and I talk about who's sponsoring them, understand that what it means is this is giving the opportunity for a bill to be passed. However, this tells you where the rhino-iness comes into play. So when we're talking about legislators, I didn't mean to go off on this tangent here, but I'm about to. When we're talking about legislators, they fall into really 3 or 4 categories. We'll call them 4 categories, okay? They fall into the quote-unquote leadership categories, the people that are kind of controlling some of the flow. They have that control through whether it's the committee on committees, caucusing, controlling floor, how the floor works, getting to control things that are out of order using, something called Robert's Rules of Orders. If you haven't read that book, and things like that. And so basically what that is it's just a way that they kind of have control and leadership. And then you've got the people that actively support the same things leadership do. So, good and the kind of the rhino-iness or the non-conservative, cronyism kind of laws, or the things that you look at and you say, that's kind of crazy, and be outspoken about it. We're talking, these are some of your representatives, like for an example, Ed Massey be a good example, in the state house, where he literally isn't in leadership, but he proposes the kinds of cruddy things that leadership likes to be proposed and moved on, and the things that don't make a lot of sense for a quote unquote Republican to be doing, and actually actively even fights against things that Republicans will be doing. Now you ask yourself, why does leadership come out against these things that quote unquote Republicans should be doing? And the reason why is because, generally speaking, one, they're quote unquote business cronies as far as that goes, and this is mainly known through the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. People in the political circles call them the Kentucky Chamber of Communism, because they are all about that big business, and that's only what they care about. They do not care about small business. They care about big business, and big business only. In fact, they're pushing for things like the mandates for employers and things like that. So employers that wanted to mandate you take a situation, they like mandating your employers take a medical treatment. If they want to do that, but they don't want to get the heat for it, they then use the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce to basically lobby it. Kentucky Chamber of Commerce was lobbying for increasing gas tax increase, for an example. So those are things. So you got that category of people. And then you've got this other category of people that don't actively work towards the things that the quote unquote establishment want done. They don't work towards them actively, but what they do, they even propose bills or jump on bills like this one, BR 60, that is a bill that would do something that Republicans want done. However, the minute that is the quote unquote establishment or leadership, whatever you want to call it, comes along and says, hey, don't do that, or they don't move it, they don't do anything, they're not loud about it, they don't try to push it through at all. And then you've got representatives, and there's very few, there's only 2 or 3 that fall into this category, that say, darn the torpedoes, we don't care about necessarily whether or not we're liked by the establishment or what have you. We don't care that they're going to try to maybe come after us. What we care about is doing what's right and getting done what's right. And that for that reason, we're not only going to just propose bills, but we're going to try to get some notoriety to these bills to get the public to push back on leadership and these other rhinos to try to get these passed. So people fall into all kinds of categories. So as you listen to some of these names, you won't recognize them necessarily because they're not very vocal. They would vote for liberty given the opportunity to on the floor, but they're not going to bend over backwards to do it. They care more about being in office than they do sacrificing for liberty. And then you have very few that care more about getting things done for liberty than they actually care about staying in office. And those are very, very few, and they're hard to come by. So anyways, BR 60, neutral zone politics, something that is loved that probably the establishment will hate, because of course the school unions and school boards won't like it, because it takes away and can get them in trouble, opens them up to liabilities that maybe they don't want. And for that reason, they will say, no, we don't want that passed. So well, it'll be interesting to watch. BR 65, that's got Rep. Reed, Beckler, Decker, Huff, Thomas Huff, Maddox, and Rayborn on that one. That one is essentially no passports there. No, you know what for. I'm on Facebook, so if I say the word, they'll downgrade me. Go ahead, and guys, as I'm going through this, please don't be afraid to hit that share button. Share it in several places. Let people know we're out here. So BR 65, which means that no thing passport, the thing with the medical treatment that people are firing people over. So this says that you can't have that, and make sure that you cannot be denied things that are publicly funded or majority publicly funded. Basically, your tax dollars, you can't be paying tax dollars for something that then you can't take advantage of. I'd take this one step further. I'd take it to the airlines and say, our road fund dollars, just about every airport's owned by the government, and our road fund dollars go towards paving those tarmacs. If you're going to be an airline and I'd love to see a bill that says this, and we might even talk to a few reps that I and senators that I know and I talked to about getting this bill done that says that if an airline puts in place a mandate on the passengers that they have to have, the thing in order to fly, they have to pay a special charge, maybe to Kentuckians, to the state to pay for the tarmacking, because the tarmacs in the airports. They got to pay an extra amount because we, the taxpayers, are paying for those things. But if you're denying chunks of us access to that, but we're paying for it, you shouldn't be able to do that. And so that's something that actually I would be in favor for. And I've talked about to help push back on these airlines at the state level, push back on these airlines, possibly requiring that for passengers to fly, saying, hey, listen, you got to pay a special charge for that because now you're denying taxpayers that are subsidizing your business through airports and runways access to your services. So there you go. BR 69, that's the no CRT bill. That one's got a whole mess of people on there. We got Lockett, Baker, Beckler, Callaway, Decker, Dotson, Pfister, Gooch, Hart, Huff, Thomas Huff, Kim King, Kirk, McCormick, Miller, Prunty, Rayborn, Tate, Thomas, Wesley, and White. That's a lot of sponsors. That bill might actually move with that many sponsors, but I notice I'm not seeing Miles. I'm not seeing McCoy. I'm not seeing Osborne. I don't know if this one moves. I don't know if it does. Despite all that on there, who knows if they will have the guts to move this and stand up to the school unions at the leadership level. But I hope this one moves. We've had some hearings about it. It's big across the nation. People are campaigning on it nationwide. Maybe, just maybe, we might be able to get this Republican supermajority to actually move on it. And of course, from the Democrats, we have we teach in CRT, saying, hey, no, we're teaching that CRT. Of course, that's put out by Attica Scott. Most to note when I talk about some of these cruddy bills and talking about Attica Scott, she's going to come up a little bit. Remember, she's running for Congress in Louisville. So when you're hearing these bills and you're like, why would they propose that? That's never going to pass in Kentucky. Remember, she's trying to run for higher office. So a lot of this is just political theater in order to make a point or to say, I supported something, or I tried to do something, or look at me in order to run for Congress. So once again, just wasting your taxpayer dollars on things, because when they propose a bill, they got to put a bill forward to LRC. LRC's got to read through it and try to find where it may conflict with other bills and basically help craft the bill, do a double check on the bill. They might change up some of the terminology and send it back to you to look at, and then you file it with the committee on committees. All that costs money. It costs your taxpayer dollars, and they're spending that to get political wins so they can sit there and say, look what I did. And, I'm not saying we should necessarily regulate that. I'm just saying that it's a bill that's not going to go anywhere. We're certainly, the Republican, so-called Republican supermajority may vote to against CRT, but they're definitely not voting for it. I can tell you that much. So that's not going to go anywhere. Not that worried about that, but that's BR 427. I want to throw that in there because we had the CRT bill. Now we have the we're not teaching CRT. Let's see. We got another Democrat here putting forward a minimum wage law. What he does here is he broke up employers into two sections: small employers and large employers. Small employers are less than 25 employees. Large employers are more than 25 employees. How the labor market works, it doesn't matter who you're regulating. It's not like because when you get down to it, and we'll kind of basically over between now and 2026, so over the next 4 years, they'd raise the minimum wage for small employers to $12 an hour and large employers to $15 an hour. But the way labor markets work, it's going to be $15 an hour anyways. And I ask you guys, with the raise in labor, as it's been already raising massive percentages, now real labor, of course not, because it once again proves that raising everybody's wage will cause inflation. And at the end of the day, you don't want to make more money. You want to buy more things, meaning that you need your dollars to go further. And that's instead what we should be looking at. And there's a great way to give you more money in your pocket without raising the cost of things. And that is that the government stops spending so much money and taking so much from you. If the government right now takes, if I pay an employee $10 an hour, that employee is getting a net $8 an hour, maybe $8, some $58 an hour. and I'm paying in payroll taxes and costs to do that about $12.50 an hour. That is $4.50 an hour of money going to a person making right now taking home $8 an hour. If the government just cut down half of what they were taking, it wouldn't cost me $1 more. It wouldn't cost the employee. We wouldn't have to raise the cost of things, and the employee could be taking home $2 more an hour if the government just cut the amount they're taking in half. $2 more an hour in their pocket. That's a 25% raise without raising the cost of anything at all. And they could be doing that, but they're not doing that. Instead, they're doing things like this because, of course, the issue is the employers aren't paying enough. The issue can never be that government is literally making 50% of what an employee does off of their labor, without having to do anything. I mean, once again, remember the government's spending $26,000 for every man, woman, and child in Lexington. That's at the state. I'm sorry, that's at the city, state, and federal level combined, spends $26,000 per every man, woman, and child, which is way too high in Lexington. So I'm looking at the Lexington budget, state budget, and the federal budget, and that's so much money. I mean, a family of four, that's over $100,000. That's $104,000. Literally, if the government didn't take any in taxes, you could hire 2 people to do everything around your house. Okay, that put that in perspective. But anyways, he raises the minimum wage up to $15 an hour. I don't know if that goes anywhere or not. I mean, this is weird. You're not hearing a lot on minimum wage right now. And the reason why is because wages are skyrocketing already. And what we're finding out is that when you play around with the labor market, and Joe Biden actually said this, he said, we'll raise the wage one way or another. And they're not doing it through law. What they're doing it through is by putting so much free money out there that forces the wages up. But the problem is it's caused so much inflation that real wages have actually shrunk because you can't buy as much. Your dollar doesn't go as far. And that's what we were talking about. All the people who've been worried about raising a minimum wage or the minimum wage law at all, that's been our point all along, is that if everybody's wages goes up, it increases the cost of things and your wage didn't actually go up. It's not worth it, and it just causes inflation, which is what we're seeing now. BR 106 is a no shoddy shot mandate for public or places receiving public funds. That's BR 106. That's a big push. That's Maddox's bill originally. It's got a lot of sponsors on that one. We got Maddox, Hart, Baker, Banta, Beckler, Callaway, Decker, Dotson, Fisher, Pfister, Huff, Regina Huff, and Thomas Huff. Lawrence, Lockett, Rayborn, Tate, Wesley, and White. That's a lot of sponsors. You think it goes somewhere. I am still not convinced, even with that many sponsors, it goes anywhere. I mean, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. That's 18. Almost 20% of the House is sponsoring this bill. I still don't know if it goes anywhere, but we'll see. We'll see if they make any moves on it. BR 133 is a term limits bill. I'm sometimes a little split on term limits. I think definitely at the federal level, term limits is necessary, not just because it's not as much about corruption or things, but if you understand the federal level, even congressmen, they have a staff, they have a large staff, and that staff is taxpayer funded. And that staff, some of that staff's job is something called constituent services, which is basically like a campaign group. I mean, that's essentially what they're doing. I mean, their whole goal and job is to interact with the public, be a representation of their boss, or let's say, so the person who's in office, the representative or the congressman, and to represent that person to the public and to basically help get their name out there more and to make them seen more, which means if somebody's running against them constantly, they have to overcome that constant public presence that's being paid for by the taxpayer. So I see some value there in term limits, definitely at the federal level. The local level, where you don't have that staff, you don't have those constituent services, and you don't have that much taxpayer money going into it, where basically it's a senator or house rep has them, and then they get a legislative system that basically just helps them sift through their emails and have communications. That's it. Otherwise, it's just them in their district representing themselves. I don't know if term limits necessarily accomplish a whole lot, or if they're necessarily as necessary. I think there might be some limitations what the parties do. Maybe, I don't know. I'm like I said, I'm splitting term limits definitely at the state level on if it's a good idea or bad idea, because obviously we don't want good representatives pushed out while we still need them. But at the same time, at the federal level, with the amount of money being spent, by taxpayer dollars to keep somebody in office through things like those constituent services, I definitely see value in term limits there for sure. BR 154, that is a bill to about transgender sports, essentially saying if you're biologically born a male, you play in male sports, or biologically born a female, you play in female sports. That's BR 154. Now, these aren't all the bills that are pre-filed. I'm just going through kind of the important ones, highlight ones. There's some interesting other ones too as well that maybe if you want to go look at on LRC's site, you can feel free to. BR 171, that's a gun sanctuary state. That's got Bray, Banta, Pfister, Huff, Reed, and Weber on that one. That is nullifying federal gun laws. Basically, it prohibits the enforcement of federal ban or regulation of firearms. So that's a pretty solid bill there. BR 209, I threw in here just because I thought it was kind of dumb. I thought it was a dumb law, and I'll tell you why. So basically, it says this law would make it to where anytime you turn on your windshield wipers at all because of precipitation, you have to turn on your headlights, okay? Which is silly because sometimes you're just getting a light sprinkle and you turn on your windshield wipers and then it turns on your headlights. And it just seems like another, essentially a fine or a tax on drivers for almost a silly reason. When it's downpouring rain, a lot of people throw on their lights anyways. I understand it's hard to say, well, when your windshield wipers are moving at such speed, but when it's sprinkling out, you shouldn't be pulled over for not having your headlights on. That's just why I thought it was kind of a silly law. BR 275 is to take away half-day kindergarten. So essentially, it'd make kindergarten full day every day. For kids there, a lot of times people skip kindergarten. I know my dad skipped kindergarten when he was in school. I don't know if any of you guys did. I don't know if that is a great idea or not. I think it's certainly an interesting requirement to say the least. That's BR 275. Attica Scott coming in with another bill that's going to go nowhere. BR 322. That is a UBI bill. So it's to create a universal basic income of $1,000 per month for every Kentuckian. That's right. $1,000 a month for every Kentuckian. Of course, there's a slight income requirements, right? But the point is that it's a universal basic income, which is a terrible idea. And it's a terrible idea. One is I've priorly thought that if we took away all other welfare programs, every single other one, and just at UBI, we'd actually save money because we'd save money on administrating it. We'd save money on all these other things. The problem is government can't be trusted, and government would just raise UBI, or they'd throw everything in back. They'd take it away, then throw it back in because they'd get the grand idea to do it. If we could just say, okay, we're going to have a UBI, that's it, and no other welfare programs, it actually would probably save us money. But once again, government can't be trusted. So let's not go down that road. We can't trust them with that. If only government can be trusted to control themselves and do the right thing, we would be able to do a lot more things. But of course, they're throwing a UBI in, $1,000 per person a month. That is, of course, atrocious. BR 353, particularly proud of this one. We've been pushing for this one heavy. A lot of you guys saw our email relay on this where we've been hitting them really hard about it. We're going to fire this on back up. But BR 353 is workers' comp for mandates for if an employer makes a mandate and it causes an injury, they get workers' comp for that. That's pretty solid. And I think, and it says, my issue with this, though, is it's only within 14 days of receiving. I'd want to extend that out a little bit more than 14 days. But regardless, BR 353 is great. It pushes back on some of these private things. This one might actually move because it's not outright banning it. And of course, we all know that the establishment leadership has issues with it. They may give us this one as a pittance, who knows? But the key thing is a matrix retroactive to help fight these mandates going on now. So we're going to be firing up that push back here soon, and especially with this bill coming out. And I tell you what, it's got tons of sponsors on it, Scott, because of the pressure we've been putting on it. This bill only originally had 1 or 2 sponsors when it was first proposed. We're able to grow that up, and we've got Rayborn, Maddox, Baker, Beckler, Callaway, Decker, Dotson, Huff, both Huffs, Lawrence, Lockett, and Bratcher on that one. So that's BR 353. That's a pretty solid bill. BR 440, cops in schools. I only bring this up because in Louisville the other day, they had their school board meeting, to which ended up being dismissed, and police had to get involved because there was great arguments broken out over this, where, of course, the BLM rabble rousers, I guess you'd call it, I don't know what else to call it, the BLM group, of course, did their performative things where students of color, people of color, POCs, I guess they're called, would fear for their lives in school because, of course, a public resource officer is just going to pull out a gun and start shooting everybody up in there, because that's what they're led to believe. The stats don't lead that way. Of course, the police behavior shows that that's not the case, but that's what they've decided to say. They say resource officers keeping people safe is a bad idea because you'll die from the cop. Let's ignore the fact that people are being literally shot in drive-bys while waiting on the bus in Louisville, but whatever. Last but not least, BR 826, the I Want to Kill Babies bill. That's, of course, by 2 Democrats putting that up there. That essentially says it is the right of an individual in Kentucky to terminate a pregnancy whenever they want to. So there you go. I want to, it doesn't matter if it's about to be born. What matters is that they can terminate whenever they want to. So there you guys go. Just want to run through a few bills, give you some idea where I stand on it, what I thought about them, gives you guys a better chance to get to, of course, know me, know what I'm about. Like I said, if you'd like to donate, you can at Cooper or Andrew, ANDREW, number 4, KY.com/donate. Share this out there too as well. Thank you guys so incredibly much. Have a great day.